Hello, beautiful friends. Beth Harding here, your certified life coach, to help you toss suffering to the curb so you can enjoy your life for good. And today I'm titling this video as Your Wanting is Holy. And basically, I want to talk about desire. And desire is a feeling. I think it's one of the most important feelings we have as humans. Desire is why we do anything at all. Without desire, we wouldn't last as a species. We wouldn't eat or drink. We wouldn't even shower if we didn't have desire. Desire is so important. Desire controls all of our actions. And truthfully, I want to talk about our desires and why I believe they are what make us holy or set apart. We've labeled our desires either as healthy or non-healthy, okay or not okay. But what I've learned over the years is all of my desires lead me back to truth. The truth of who I am and why I'm here. I've spent most of my life thinking my desires were a problem, but desire has never been a problem until, we as a society created false desire. And this is just when we use our own natural desire against ourselves due to our brain's wiring. So let me explain. We have a human brain that loves pleasure. And it's rewarded pleasure by staying alive. For example, when you eat an apple, dopamine is released into the brain and it feels really good. But now in our culture today, we have man-made, artificial, concentrated hits of dopamine. So instead of wanting an apple, I go to the grocery store and I want an Oreo or like a Swiss cake roll because I know that it's going to give me way more dopamine, like way more of that feel-good hormone than an apple can do. So my brain thinks that, the Oreos are important or the Oreos are better. And that's great until we get on the scale or we begin to feel sick afterwards. And if you look at our culture, you can see that we've kind of mass-produced this idea. We've created all kinds of false pleasures, from shopping, drugs, to sex, so that we can get that concentrated dopamine hit. And really, it just leaves us with this over-desire brain. And let me just make a note, I'm not saying Oreos are a problem or even the things we've created. I'm not saying that they're all a problem by themselves, but we have a culture that we rush toward those things, those concentrated hits of pleasure, yet we're more depressed and unfulfilled and stressed and overworked and anxious than ever. So over-desire is created when we use our desire on a false pleasure or this man-made substitute. It's when we use our desire on something superficial or fake that isn't going to produce a long-lasting positive result for ourselves. So over-desire always has a net negative effect. You watch porn because you have this healthy desire for sex and connection, but then you feed it with this over-concentrated idea of sex, and instead of your desire being met from a real human loving interaction, you're left feeling lonely and disconnected again, which then perpetuates the desire for love and sex again. And you can see how we kind of find ourselves in addictions and behaviors that we don't necessarily want in the long term. It's just coming from our own brain's, mechanism, how our brain is wired. But even our over desire, it begins with a true, what we could label healthy desire. And today I really want to focus in on that, on your true, I guess you could say, like natural desires. So like what's underneath what has been fed by maybe a false pleasure or over desire. And I think the real question is, what do you desire? Like, what is it that you want? Do you even know? And I think most of us don't really know. We're so used to pushing down our desires or feeding our desires with false pleasures that we're no longer in touch with the deepest parts of our longing, the parts of us that ignite us and really propel us to create. And I labeled this, video or audio, "Your wanting is holy," because I want you to see that your desire stems from the truth of you. The truth of you being this magnificent, divine human essence. This spirit-filled body, I guess you could say. Your desire is the very truth of who you are and why you are here. But we have to be willing to acknowledge and then cultivate our desires. We have to be willing, in a sense, to give birth to them, to feel the labor pains of them, and then see, like, does this thing really last? And so first, you just have to acknowledge the desire within yourself. And I like to call this like our burning bush. So there's this story in the Bible where this Hebrew man named Moses sees a burning bush. And the bush doesn't actually do anything in the story. It's just a bush on fire that doesn't actually burn down. It's just there. It's just a presence. And it wasn't until Moses acknowledges the bush that he heard God speak from it. And God told Moses to set the Hebrews free from slavery, from the Egyptians. That's what this story in the Bible is all about. And this is exactly what our own desires are like. We all have this burning bush or burning bushes within ourselves. And the thing is we walk by our burning bushes all day, every day. So often we have forgotten our desires. So of course, in this story, Moses, he sees the burning bush, but how many times had he gone by this burning bush and just not even noticed it? You have to acknowledge the desire. You have to question it. What is it? Is it even anything worth looking at? And as soon as you acknowledge the desire, then life will speak to it. The burn is either going to set in place or it's going to fizzle out to not be anything at all. But it's the noticing, becoming aware, that really begins the journey. You see something and it's too fascinating. You become curious of this longing within yourself. And that's kind of like when you see and hear and know. At that point, you begin knowing. We know quite clearly what we are to do, and what we're supposed, what our purpose is and why. Because that desire is usually bigger than us. It's at least bigger than the confines of our beliefs. And that's what makes desire so necessary. It's this unquenchable thirst. It's this unstoppable fire that is within us and doesn't let go. And if you continue to read in Exodus the story of Moses, immediately fear kicks in, because that's what happens to poor Moses. It's kind of like our brains come in and say, wait, hold on. Like, you want me to do what? Who am I? I can't do that. What's a desire like that doing in me? And we even say, like, I think the desire is in the wrong person. Like, no, somebody else needs to desire this thing. But what's key here is none of us are just persons. We're not so much the thing fearing, but in fact, we are the ones desiring. We forget that we're not just human, but we're so much more. And I like to call it is it's like we have that God voice, that God life within ourselves. And that burning bush isn't outside of us, it's within us. So when we allow our desires, like when we acknowledge them, we give them chance to mature and ultimately to propel us into creating something really worthwhile for ourselves and for our world. And no, you don't have to desire something big and worthy and, frivolous or righteous for it to be holy. There are no small burning bushes. We're not meant to compare desires. We're meant to fulfill them. So Moses had a desire to set a whole nation free, and that's beautiful. But what is your desire? You might not have a desire to set a whole group of people free. And if you do, I say amazing. Like, you need to go do that. That's a desire worth cultivating. But even if you don't have something so big like that, I want you to really settle in and kind of like maybe even go to a secret place, like all alone, like go to your closet. That's where I like to hide from my children. And it's kind of like ask yourself in the secret depths of your heart, what is burning right now that you just need to admit? Would you continue to just walk past and ignore it? Or is there a whisper within yourself for something different, for something more? I really want you to take the time to want, to be in wanting for something, to want something on purpose, to want it for no other reason than the desire being the most honest, truest, holiest thing about you here and now. And as a life coach, I'm here to help you create and cultivate the desires within yourself. I like to think I help normal people live extraordinary lives. And I want you to hear, like, I had a desire within me, a burning bush within myself that I walked past every day for so many years because I thought what I was doing was good and right. But truthfully, like, I was lying. I was lying to myself. I was lying to my family. I was lying to my friends. Because as much, those of you who maybe don't know, like, I was a children's pastor. And I love children. Like, that's a huge love of mine. I love children's ministry. But because as much as I love children and as much as I loved many things about being a children's pastor, I denied wanting to do something different for myself. And it's really scary to admit that. It's scary to say you want something different, especially if what you have is so good. But that is our work, friends. And so I stepped completely out of my comfort zone to pursue a career that truthfully seemed impossible at the time. And before I even got there, I had to move. I moved to a foreign country because I didn't know how to cultivate this longing in my heart. I didn't know exactly what it was. I was so fearful of it. But once I acknowledged it, I couldn't ignore it any longer, and it took me a long time to acknowledge it. But once I did, things began to move for me. Things began happening. So much of our suffering comes from not listening to the truth of ourselves, from denying what we really want, or maybe just giving up altogether, or from being too afraid to dare to dream what could be possible. Friend, your desires are holy. Your wanting is holy. It's time to acknowledge and cultivate your desires. It's time for you to enjoy your life. It's time for you to create on purpose. If you would like, you can get on a free call with me. I'm here to help you explore your dreams. I'm here to help you live your extraordinary life. You can go to www.lifecoachwithbeth.com, or you can go to the links in my bio or under this video. Friend, your desires are holy. Create on purpose. I love you. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.